Today we're talking about the best cards from Bloomburrow that you need for your commander deck. Hey everyone, my name is DJ. This is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and Bloomburrow is an adorable set. I love it so much. There are a few cards in this set that are going to belong in your commander deck, so let's take a look at the top 8 cards from the main set that you just need to pick up. Starting off at number 8, we have Darkstar Augur. Darkstar Augur is 2 and a black for a 2/3 Bat Warlock with Offspring Black. That means that you can pay an additional black as you cast it, and you'll create a 1/1 token copy of it. It has flying, and at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its mana value. We've seen this effect before. Dark Confidant, Bob, has been around for forever, and we've seen other versions of this, like Caustic Bronco in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I personally love this effect. It's fantastic. I know a lot of people are afraid of that life lost, but remember, the majority of your deck is lands, so you're more than likely not going to take any damage. And most decks should have a mana curve like around 3 or 4 maybe. And so if you're taking just a couple damage every single turn, that's a great payoff for the card draw. So please don't be afraid at the life loss of this card. Instead, enjoy the huge flexibility of being able to have a single body or 2 bodies drawing you 2 cards per turn. The card has a lot going for it, and it's its flexibility and its body and the fact that it creates a token that could make it really good for your deck. At number 7, we have Dawn's Truce. Dawn's Truce is 1 and a white for an instant. Gift a card. That means that you can promise an opponent a card, and if you do, you get an additional effect on the spell. You and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. If the gift was promised, permanents you control also gain indestructible until end of turn. Cards like Everybody Lives, Teferi's Protection, like these are staples that you need in decks that commit things to the battlefield. You can't just, drop your hand, put your precious commander on the battlefield and expect not to get board wiped. It's gonna happen. And so you need cards like this to be able to protect you. And the cheaper they are, the better they are. And so at 2 mana, this is premium. This is premium, and the gift of a card is honestly not a downside. Someone that does get their battlefield wiped by the big effect, you can give them a card to get back in the game while you protect your stuff, and then suddenly you have an ally against the person that board wiped. I think the flexibility and the political potential of gift something is very good. Another gift card that I like is Parting Gust. White for an instant, gift a tapped fish, which is not a great gift, but it's something. Exile target non-token creature. If the gift wasn't promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. So this can be a removal spell, or it can be a save your creature from something, or a flicker spell. That's really great flexibility. This has me thinking of Touch the Spirit Realm, which has performed amazing in my decks. Removal spell combined with flicker, just so good. At number 6, we have Essence Channeler. Essence Channeler is 1 and a white for a 2/1 Bat Cleric. As long as you've lost life this turn, Essence Channeler has flying and vigilance. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Essence Channeler. When Essence Channeler dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Ajani's Pridemate has been outclassed by so many different cards in so many different ways. So if you're playing a life gain deck and you want this effect, like Essence Channeler is going to be a staple. The idea that it's going to grow along with your strategy, and then you can save those counters, passing them on to something really good, like an Elenda the Dusk Rose or something crazy like that, means that this is just going to be perfect in a very popular strategy. At number 5, I want to talk about Jackdaw Savior. Jackdaw Savior is 2 and a white for a 3/1 Flying Bird Cleric. Whenever Jackdaw Savior or another creature you control with flying dies, return another target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. We have seen cards like this do amazing loops. Like, I've played with Scrap Trawler a ton, and even if you don't have just full-on loops and combos with it, it still ends up being surprisingly good. Jackdaw Savior can create those loops, but also it could just be a great value card for your Flying Matters deck. I'm also imagining of a Luminous Broodmoth, this idea to bring things back with flying counters, and then Jackdaw Savior triggers on flying things. I think there's some cool stuff there, especially because Luminous Broodmoth has a beautiful printing in this set. Man, Revelark and Vesperlark also have flying, which is very interesting to see how these all work together. It's really fun. Next is a beautiful elemental bird. It's Maha, its Feathers Knight. Maha, its Feathers Knight is 3 black for a 6/5 legendary elemental bird with flying, trample, ward, discard a card, and creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. Oh man, this just destroys your opponent's creature strategies. Their creatures become so weak, they're so easy to pick off. And this can combo with cards like Knight of Soul's Betrayal or other cards that reduce the toughness of your opponent's creatures. I don't know how good a 2-card combo, just removing your opponent's creatures from the battlefield are, but that doesn't matter because this card is just good on its own. It's just a beefy 6/5 flyer that no one wants to take out because of its ward, and it completely disrupts the creature strategies on the board. Next up is Hugs. Hugs Grizzly Guardian is X red green for a 5/5 legendary Badger Warrior. It's got trample. When Hugs Grizzly Guardian enters, exile the top X cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. I think the Hugs of baseline is really solid. Just 4 mana, 5/5, play an extra land, great. But then you add in the flexibility of being able to draw extra cards and then, exile a bunch from the top of your library, immediately play a land, and then the next turn you can play 2 more lands and then you have access to everything else that you've exiled, really giving you a boost for your follow-up turn. I like that play pattern. It's a really high ceiling, but a really low bar when you're just talking about a beefy creature that helps you ramp in Gruul, which is a beefy, rampy strategy. I focused on Hugs, but I think the better lands matter creature from this set is Lumra, Bellow of the Woods, but that was spoiled so early on that I'm not really going to give it much attention here, but definitely wanted to give it a shout out because it is awesome to just ramp all those cards onto the battlefield. All right, we're at number 2 now, and this is where I want to talk about the season cycle. All of them look so cool, and they're definitely going to have their places, but I think the best is Season of Weaving. Season of Weaving is 4 blue for a sorcery. Choose up to 5 paw prints worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. For 1 paw print, you can draw a card. That means you could draw 5 cards for 6 mana, solid. For 2 paw prints, choose an artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of it. That could be very good. We know that there are artifacts or creatures out there that we definitely want copies of. And then for 3 paw prints, return each non-land, non-token permanent to its owner's hand. Well, that's sweet too, because we can make a token copy for 2, and then for 3, finishing off this card, return everything else to their hand. We can also return everything .2 cards. Like, there is definitely some flexibility with this. One reason why I know this is going to be really good is because Perplexing Test is also just a staple. It is so good in these token strategies, and there's a lot of decks out there that want to reset the battlefield while keeping all of their tokens intact. Also, just creating a token copy of a card is really good, and oftentimes we see ourselves paying like 3 or 4 mana for this effect. And with the flexibility, 6 mana is totally worth it. So if you have tokens, you want that copy effect, I think this is really great. But remember, the baseline is 6 mana, draw 5 cards, which sounds fun. I love it. And then finally, the number 1 card from this set is 3 Tree City. 3 Tree City is a legendary land. As 3 Tree City enters, choose a creature type. This enters untapped, which is great. It taps for a colorless mana, but then for 2 tap, choose a color, add an amount of mana of that color equal to the number of creatures you control of the chosen type. So at 3 creatures on the battlefield, this breaks even, it creates the color that you want. But as soon as you have 4 or more creatures, then this thing starts generating mana. And we know from these kinds of effects, like Cabal Coffers or Nykthos feels kind of like this card. They can produce a ton of mana. So do you have a deck that really goes wide? I'm talking about like Elf Ball, where you just put a ton of elves on the battlefield, or Squirrels, man. Squirrels is gonna be insane. Just pretty normal to just have a bunch of saplings, a bunch of swirls, a bunch of something soldiers on the battlefield, and then you just tap this and now you have even more mana to deploy things. Like, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be so good in so many different strategies. All right, I couldn't talk about every single card in here, so are there any cards from Bloomburrow that I missed? Tell me in the comments down below. This episode is brought to you by Wizards of the Coast. If you're interested in picking up some Bloomburrow, click on the link in the description. If you're interested in playing some Bloomburrow, that's great. Get out to your local game store, play some cards with friends. I mean, this is a great time to play Magic. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks again to Wizards of the Coast. Hope to see you all really soon. Bye-bye.